everyone remembers the Freedom Convoy because we're all more than 4 years old over here. Right. So the way the Canadian government was finally able to crack down on the Freedom Convoy is it manufactured people's opinions. There were people in Ottawa who said that the mandates were bad, but they were also angry at the truckers because they were causing a disturbance and their kids couldn't sleep and they were causing a nuisance, right? The government amplified those voices and manufactured the Canadian opinion that yes, the mandates were bad, but also the truckers were bad. And then they shifted that to just the truckers were bad, and then they cracked down on the truckers with the manufactured consent of the Canadian people. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and your point makes sense. The reason why some people might not like this from an Iranian perspective is because Iranians usually don't like the Islamic Republic to be compared to the Canadian government, because they think that the level of evil of this. I understand.
I apologize.
Your point stands. I'm just saying there's a more effective way of communicating what you're trying to say, because I think a lot of Iranians will find it. They're not gonna like, because they think like other governments might have their problem, but when it comes to the Islamic Republic, we're talking about pure evil,
I
right?
humbly apologize, and I absolutely
no, don't apologize.
Agree with that.
Yeah, don't apologize. I'm just saying it from a marketing perspective, from an audience perspective. Like we could come up with
Okay, look, my point ultimately is this. My concern is that the regime, as you may have guessed, will do the same thing. They will take those minority of Iranians that believe that America and Israel are bad for not doing anything. They will amplify those voices saying, oh, America and Israel are not doing anything and they broke their promise and we shouldn't have ties with them.
Yep.
And then they will manufacture the dissent of the Iranian people for an alliance with America and Israel, sowing the seeds for a future revolution.
Well, that's what they're doing. Like what you're saying is what's happening as we're speaking. They're doing that already right now, right? This is what I do to try to convince the people who are disappointed with Israel and the United States. After I point out that the reason why there was a delay is because the original plan was supposed to be just a symbolic one, but now the attack that they're planning is something a lot more meaningful. That seems to be the reason, right? Another thing that I say that is more effective is to trust Prince Reza Pahlavi. Because if I want to convince people who are really angry, they're like, "Shut up, Armin! Like, fuck you! Like, you don't understand what we have. Like, so many people died. Where were they? Like, we needed them right when we were dying in the thousands. Nobody showed up to help us, right?" And me saying that as somebody outside of Iran to people who were experiencing that inside Iran comes off as insensitive and somebody who's preaching to them what they need to do from a position of safety. So
I would never presume to. I would never presume to speak.
I'm not talking about I'm talking from my perspective. Even as an Iranian, for example, I'm trying to be careful not to basically tell them what the right strategy is. But this is why, because they trust Prince Reza Pahlavi, we always refer back to him. And whenever you do that, their guard will come down because they trust him and they accept him as a leader. So we just remind them that Prince Reza Pahlavi is relying on American Israeli support, and he is trying to build, not being aggressive towards them. So we have to follow his model. We have to be like, given that he is trying to maintain a positive relationship with the United States and Israel, and he's in communication with them. Regardless of what you're feeling, our feelings are less important right now than our revolution being successful. We're in the middle of a war and we have to win. And even if you are correct and you're disappointed with the United States or Israel or whatever, I also, by the way, remind them that the Israeli people have been very supportive regarding of what you're thinking about the Israeli government right now. But at the end of the day, what we need to focus on is what we need to do rather than what we're feeling. And what we need to do is to follow Prince Pahlavi's model Prince Reza Pahlavi is not showing any aggression right now to Americans or the Israelis. So that's our role model right now. That's what I say, and that's usually how I convince them.
Okay. Look, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the issue, right? And you clearly are. So my job is done.
No, well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Hi.
Appreciate it. Hi, guys. If you want to speak, just raise your hand. I don't know if you know how to raise your hand. I'll add you to the list anyways, but I'll tell other people. Ariana. Okay, Brandon also is now on the list. Okay, guys, we need to go through everyone fast because the list is long. There's a smiley face at the bottom of your screen. If you click on it and then you click on the raise hand button, then you can raise your hand and I'll add you to the list. So right now on my list, I have Michael, Mosey, Raleigh, right? Pronounce it right, I think. Yeah. Mind Matter, Kelly, Ariana, and then Brandon.
It correctly.
I did? Oh my
God,
that's
you pronounced it correctly.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right, so Michael, the list is long, so please let's get to the point.
Sure. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of pro mullah, YouTubers. You look at Shahrzadeh. He's he said some outlandish shit. One time he was Nick Fuentes, would love going to Iran or Afghanistan because that's where the real white people are and shit like that. And he's what's it called? Islam is part of our identity and stuff. And I'm like, well, you can't have a successful country when you don't have a secular state. That's why I wanted to add. I wanted to just get to the point that Islam is not compatible with industrialization of a nation.
What I'm hearing, by the way, before I came to the live stream that we have with Goldie, I was on the Persian channel, okay? And there were people in the comment section that were saying that, oh, secularism is a joke. We're going to burn everything remaining from Islam after this, right? So they're saying we're not a lot of Iranians are saying they're laughing at the idea of secularism because of the experience that they had on January 8 and January 9. And they're saying what do you mean separation of Islam and politics? We're going to make sure that there's nothing left out of Islam once we're done with these people anywhere in Iran, inside the government, outside of the government, anywhere in the government, anywhere in our land, and maybe even beyond. They're so angry that they're basically what they're asking for is way beyond secularism. They want the complete destruction of anything that has anything to do with Islam. I'm not saying that's what everybody believes, but I saw a lot of comments like that in the chat.
Yeah, you've heard of him, right? Shahrzadeh.
Who?
Shahrzadeh.
Can you maybe put his link?
SHARGHDEH.
No, I haven't heard of him.
Here, I'll put the link to his channel here.
امیر عباس فخرآور رو داره میگه؟
What do you mean by Republican? Do you mean like a Republican Party or an Iranian Republic supporter of Republic, the Constitutional Republic?
The Constitutional Republic. Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know him. Now I see him. Maybe he's not that big. Okay, now I know him. Thank you, Michael. All right. No, looks like a loser. So haven't been missing much.
That is Reza Pahlavi is anti-Reza Pahlavi.
Okay, so just a loser then. Okay, so now I have Mosey, Raleigh, Mind Matter, Kelly, Ariana, Brandon. So Mosey.
Hi, Armin. How's it going?
Good.
I just had a little quick thing to ask you. I was just listening to your explanation there on the live chat there, and I was wondering, I know how you said that even if the Islamic Republic goes along with the deal, it's kind of like a death to them, even if they go and say, okay, we'll give up the ballistic missile production, the whole nuclear and everything like that, that still puts them in a very weak spot. But I was thinking, wouldn't that also not be a really good thing in a sense that if they do that, they're gonna, how they are. They always spin things oh, we won and we scared the Americans, now they're gone. And then meanwhile, while all the bureaucracy is going on where America and whatever is trying to get people in to make sure that they're doing all these deals, keeping up their end, they're still like finding areas here and there to get more missiles or like how they do with the whole nuclear thing. They first allow people to come in, and then next they're like, you can see here, but you can't see there. You know what I mean? Like all the stuff that they play, it's like it's all just gonna keep prolonging their life, right? Like
so the United States used to tolerate that because they didn't see a pathway through regime change, right? But they knew that they always knew, like Americans have the best intelligence than anyone in the world, right? So they know that the Islamic Republic is buying time but doing these negotiations, and they're moving towards the path to become nuclear and also have, I don't know, 2,000 ballistic missiles or whatever, right? They know they're going towards that. So if regime change was on the table without American troops on the ground, obviously that would be the most ideal thing for Americans. And the idea is, like, imagine, like, think about it, like from the perspective of Israel and the Iranian people. If the Islamic Republic, I mean, what are the terms of surrender, right? No ballistic missiles, no enriched uraniums. All of it Americans have to go and check and make sure all of it is out, like accounted for, and then not in the hands of the Islamic Republic, right? No killing the Iranian people anymore, and no support for the proxies, basically the terrorist groups in the region. So what happens if the Islamic Republic says yes to all of this? Like, what is then, like, what is it there to stop the Israelis then to go finish the job, and also the Iranian people to go finish the job, if the Islamic Republic has lost? I mean, that is basically zero deterrence. Like, I know the Islamic Republic's deterrence capability right now is very low, but if you go through all of that, then even the thin wall that was between the Islamic Republic and the Iranian people and the Israelis, even that is gone. So it's basically like they're sitting ducks. Like, they would try to continue to negotiate, but there's nothing left from the Islamic Republic other than the ability to suppress the Iranian people. Once you take that away from them, then this whole thing is going to collapse. Can you imagine how? Just put yourself in the perspective of the Iranian people and the Islamic Republic. Like, what is going to hold that thin wall anymore? If this is basically them being disarmed without a war. Like, how are they going to survive after that?
well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, by like the amount of time that's going to take, they still can continue to kill people. They have hundreds of thousands of people in jails that they can just easily kill. They are already killing them without anybody knowing. I was finally able to get a hold of some of my family members this past week, so I can hear some of the things that are going on already. And so this is all going to take time. It's going to take months and months for them to get a hold of their nuclear, and then months and months, maybe years, to get rid of their supplies of ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, they could be just killing people on the background, so that by the time everything's done, it's going to turn into a North Korea sort of situation where everything's locked down.
I mean, Iran is not going to be able to become a North Korea, but I do agree with your point that it could take a while, and if it takes a while, there's going to be a heavy price to pay in the meantime regarding the people who have to be sacrificed for all of this to take place. When it comes to timing of it, I'd rather actually talk to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, can you give us a short analysis on regarding the timing of all of this, like what you're thinking about it? And again, sorry, the list is very long, so sorry if I'm pressuring you for if you could come up
brevity.
Brevity.
So it seems like his concern rightly centers around the idea, around a couple of key things real quickly. One is that the Mullah regime is pseudo-theologically motivated, which means they are very inelastic in their behavior that's not going to change. And that the Mullah regime's current attempt at trying to offer disingenuous attempts at diplomacy or discussion is probably because they're trying to leverage something like Clausewitz's second reciprocal action, which is they're going to hunker down in the hopes that the environment changes in their favor. And in this case, buying time to reconstitute their ballistic missile capability. There's a reason that President Trump says, I do not trust them. They have to go, right? So That's both good for the United States-led Western Alliance, Israel, regional stability, and it's especially good for brave Iranian protesters. You're not wrong in the sense that, having the Mullah regime eliminate the Mullah regime's, W&D stockpiles and or ballistic missiles would leave them open. The problem is that they have any number of ways, as I outlined in a couple of previous, podcasts, to reconstitute that capability very quickly, either within and of their own accord or when they're assisted by other co-aligned actors outside of Iran.
So, guys, the list that we have is now. I saw two more people got added. So, Raleigh, Mind Matter, Kelly, Ariana, Brandon, Jeffrey, and then I saw Daniel and Ashkan also raise their hand. I don't know if Ariana is still here, but she's still in the list. All right. So, and also, Ariana is still here. Okay, good. So, let's go to Raleigh.
Yes. So the first thing I wanted to say was I had a friend join today, Kelly, and she's new. And I was wondering if you would make her a premium member like you
Okay.
did me the first time. And then the second thing I wanted to ask was when the new regime takes over Iran, if that it looks like it's going to happen, do you think the odds are pretty good that when the new regime comes in, there will be faster economic growth in the country? And do you think that let's assume that that it's a Pahlavi regime. Do you think that he'll privatize the oil industry?
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, the economic opportunities for Iran are endless once we get rid of the Islamic Republic. There's so much potential. The Iranian people are very educated, they're very entrepreneurial, they're very hardworking. They have proven themselves to be such contributing members of society everywhere outside of Iran, not under the oppression of the Islamic Republic. They have been some of the most productive people in every country that they go to. So a lot of people think that the main resources of Iran is the oil and gas, but I think the main resources of Iran are the Iranian people, especially because of the investments that the Pahlavi dynasty had made in the Iranian people. And the Islamic Republic is basically squandering it by not allowing the full potential to be taken advantage of to build the country. So I think that is the reason why, that's the main reason why Iran is going to prosper right after the Islamic Republic falls. Some things are going to take a long time to recover because of the Islamic Republic's amount of destruction that it did to our infrastructure, to our environment, to our water, to everything. A lot of that is going to takes time to rebuild. So some of that is going to take long. The Islamic Republic has destroyed the private sector in favor of the IRGC control industries that basically has destroyed competition and has monopolized many of the industries, that has made them way more expensive and a lot less efficient. But the idea of privatization, we learned from the fall of the Soviet Union that you shouldn't be rushing it because it might break everything if you just all of a sudden privatize things immediately. There needs to be a step-by-step implementation of privatization. I'm in favor of privatization, but you have to do it carefully so that you don't make the same mistake that the Soviets did in Russia.
Not shock
Because
therapy.
Yes, exactly. That's something that we should make sure that we avoid from happening. There's going to be some initial hard phases to go through because the Islamic Republic uses basically coupons and subsidies to keep the people in line with the Islamic Republic. And if we want to go into a free market and private sector without less government involvement, so a lot of these coupons and subsidies need to be basically at some point stopped. So that's going to be hard for some people to tolerate. We have to figure out how to go transition through all of that without hurting a lot of poor people. So that's going to become a big issue. So, and it comes to the oil and gas industry, I'm always in favor of privatization, but I also understand that that big of a industry might take a long time for us to be able to go. That is probably the last thing that we're going to be privatizing. I mean, I'm of, and whether or not we're going to be, I mean, I'm in favor of privatizing it. I don't know what the prince's policy on that is. However, I don't think the prince's policy is going to be the determining factor because the prince wants people to be in charge of their own destiny, and he has been fighting for sovereignty to belong to the people. So I think the way we privatize these things and what we are going to privatize is going to be based on what the Iranian people vote for and who they choose as their members of parliament. It's not like Prince Reza Pahlavi is not going to become a tyrant where he comes and dictates to Iranian what the policies are going to be. His mission has been to give the choice to the Iranian people. So a lot of this is going to be determined based on who Iranian people vote for and what the policies that they choose are. So it's going to mostly depend on the democratic process. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you, Armin.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So that was a good question, by the way. Mind matter?
Everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah, for some reason, I'm only hearing you from the left, my left headset.
All right. Yeah, it's I have a potato machine here, so sorry. My question, or not my question, is, but my saying to for the Iranian people, just keep on with the fight, and also wait for the Americans, because Trump will do the airstrikes or will hit bases there. The reason why, because Americans invested already millions to get all the equipment there. And the other thing is, it takes time. When Trump hit, it took around about 7-8 months before he did something there. And to build up attack, Trump wants to be assured he hits in one strike, everything is gone. He doesn't want to have some leftovers or, threats behind. Yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to say. Thanks for your support there as well.
Yeah, no worries. It seems like Trump wants to make sure that, based on what we're hearing, it seems like Trump wants to go with such a decisive attack that makes everything end fast. That's what people think. By the way, guys, one thing that we got news yesterday is that apparently the Saudis are also on board now for an attack. So sometimes what Arab countries around the Persian Gulf are worried about is that America is going to go do a decisive attack and they're going to leave, and then we're going to be left here with the chaos after. They were very much against a war happening, but this is a really good sign because Khalid bin Salman, Mohammed bin Salman's brother, he has been talking to the Americans regarding the attack, and they want the attack to be very big apparently, because it seems like the Saudis have realized that the attack is going to happen anyway. So it seems like they think, okay, if you're going to do the attack, make sure it ends everything with the Islamic Republic, so we're not left with the aftermath after. So they have switched their strategy from pushing for no attack to, now that the attack is happening, make sure it's complete. So that's a nice switch that we're seeing from the Saudis, which means that they probably have seen the writing on the wall, which is encouraging.
Can I still add another thing?
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think Trump has to strike the regime there. The thing is, why it's actually for the future, because he's going to cripple China with that. He's going to cripple the Russians with that. Why I'm saying this is because China is relying actually on Israel's oil. So the Russians have, at the end of the day, the Russians and
Iran's oil, you mean?
Yeah, Iran's oil, yes.
Yeah.
That's the Chinese, which are relying on 90% of the oil in China comes from them. So if Trump
90%, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
You can go check it on
I don't
the
think it's
exchange.
90%.
It's not 90.
Okay.
It's not 90.
It's not 90.
Less, but
it's big. It's big. It's significant.
It was in 2019. It was 90% roundabout. Okay, I don't know the new numbers anymore, but it's a hell of a ton of oil which comes from there to China. So if Trump's hitting or gets that oil, or the Americans, so to say, stop the oil flowing to China, Russia will not have any support from China anymore. China is done. Yeah. So I think it's like
it would be a major leverage against China, especially given that China has major leverage over the West regarding rare earth metals. So now that America has Venezuela's oil on its side, and if it gets also Iran's oil on its side, then it will have a major leverage against the Chinese. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But China's, So the
Thank you. All right.
90% that you're saying is the other way around. 90% of the Islamic Republic, like of Iran's oil, is going to China, but China's source of total crude oil from Iran is only 13 to 15% of its oil, which is very significant. Very significant.
Yes, yes.
Because
Okay, but now if like I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, the Saudi Arabian decided to bomb. Blah blah. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mind Matter. Sorry, guys, if I'm rushing you because the list is big, but thank you for your points, Mind Matter. Those were really good points. Okay. So we have, Sabina also on the list. Let me add to her. Okay. So the list I have right now is Kelly, Ariana, Brandon, Jeffrey, Danielle, Ashkan, and then Sabina. All right. So Kelly.
Hi. Raleigh told me about you guys, so I'm new here. Looking forward to joining. I think I just looked through your chat quickly, and you guys have some really interesting topics. I wanted to ask a question about: have you been following these like Muslim cities that are being banned? Do you think they're trying to implement Sharia law?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But Sharia law that will conflict with, like, when I guess when they say Sharia law, I mean, do you think it should be allowed at all, or should we allow it to
No.
like no? Okay.
No,
I
you
was
should
thinking
ban
because
them.
this seems wholly incompatible. So how do we do that given our First Amendment?
So, because this is not about freedom of expression, this is about enforcing laws parallel to the laws of your state, which is basically an act of invasion from within. A state is basically a governing body that we recognize by its ability to enforce law, right?
Yeah. So
by having law and enforcing law, you are basically are competing with the state. You're basically a state within a state. So this, to me, this looks like an invasion from between, because what is a state other than the ability to use force to enforce some laws? And then if you're creating a parallel system to that, you're challenging the state that you're in, that you're under. So that is illegal. Should be.
I would agree. Why are they not?
Because they're wording it as if it's freedom of expression. So instead of having courts, they have councils, right? Instead of calling it enforcement of law, they're acting like they are basically giving advice. Instead of having police, they have this shaming mechanism, right? So it's just a community thing, right? Instead of having laws, these are just community standards that we have here. So basically, it's like they are making it stronger and stronger, but it's really, they're trying to make it difficult for you to see that, is this a law, or this is just our way of living in our community? So they might make it look like if you stand against them, you're standing against their freedom of living the way they want to live in their community and their standards and their free expression. We don't have a really clear definition for when have you passed the line between this just being a standard that you have in your community and actually having laws and enforcing it through an enforcement mechanism. I don't know if we need to have a lawyer here to see if there's any clear definitions on how to distinguish between these two.
Yeah, and of course they're doing them in the conservative states where they generally take where it is legal in Texas. You can build a whole master plan community and put it all in together. It's dangerous.
Yeah, but eventually they will dance around this line until the point that they're too big to fight against, because they're going to also become a voting bloc, right?
Yeah.
So they make these cities. So you might at some point become, okay, this is clearly now a state within a state, and we have two different laws. So we don't have. So basically, you're going to have a situation where they have their own courts, they have their own laws, they have their own enforcement ability, and basically, this is a violation of equality under the law, because different people are now dealing with different right now. A lot of the family laws are especially different from the laws enforced by the country, but to the point that it becomes too obvious, they might be so big and a unified voting bloc that no politician would dare go against them, because they will immediately basically campaign against them and remove them.
Yeah.
So this is dangerous.
It is. I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Jeffrey, did you want to add to that quickly? Okay, good. Go ahead.
So that's one of the points of contention that many different front organizations for Islamic fundamentalist terrorist organizations try to leverage, which is hijack our First Amendment, freedom of religion as a pretext to lower the entrance barrier for them to set up little centers of gravity that are very hostile in nature. So there was one called Islamburg in New York State back in the 2007, and that was actually a offshoot or follows. It's hard to pronounce this. It actually followed a framework of Jamaat ul Fuqara (FUQRA) that was created by a very particular Islamic fundamentalist from Pakistan, and they were at times engaging in paramilitary training. So made a lot of people go, "Oh shit!" They're like, "Boy." So there's some things like that going on in Texas, not the least of which is the main point of what is it? What is the main point of the inroads that Islamic fundamentalists are trying to use to wiggle their way into red states? Well, they don't like LGBT either, and that's people in red states, rightly. And this comes from someone who's in that community, by the way. There's a legitimate concern for the left co-option and radicalization of the LGBT community as cannon fodder against elements that the left has been conditioned to view as their political opposition. And so this is the Islamic fundamentalists trying to take advantage of the co-radicalized response and to lower the entrance barrier for them to create those centers of gravity. So I totally get. I actually know the people in Texas that are trying to push back against some of the efforts you're talking about.
Let's go to Ariana. Hopefully she's still here.
Yes. Hi, Armin.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the effort that you're doing for us Iranians. You're literally on YouTube 24/7, so it seems. So thank you a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Second, yesterday you were saying something, and I just wanted to give my 2 cents about that. You said that Iran is done with religion, and we're going to be secular, and no religion will be involved, right? That's what you said, basically. Am I correct?
No. No, I said that is the attitude of some people. I'm not making a prediction about what's going to happen. I'm just saying I am reflecting the attitude of so many people I'm hearing. I don't know what's going to happen, right? But I was just saying, so I'm not making a prediction. I'm just saying that's what many people are telling me they're going to do.
Yes.
What's your prediction?
Well, it's about prediction. It's something that I just want to say. And I know it seems to be very busy in here and people have a limited amount of time. But so our culture has been constructed and built on Aryanism. And Aryanism basically means Mithraism and Zoroastrianism before Islam invaded. And our people were not...
means what? Sorry, Aryanism means what as Zoroastrianism? I didn't catch the first one.
Aryanism basically means both Mithraism and Zoroastrianism. It comes from our ethics, right? It's not just a certain people group who migrated from, let's say, modern day Ukraine to Iran, like motherland Iran, right? It's not just a people, but we also had a philosophy, right? So before Islam invaded Iran, for instance, King Darius the Great, he was a Zoroastrian. And he saw himself as a servant because in Zoroastrianism, the philosophy is about good thoughts, good acts, and good deeds, right? And he was the one who financed the Second Temple, even though Kurosh, Cyrus the Great, was the one who freed the Jews from Babylonian slavery. Darius was the one who actually paid for the temple. So when I say Aryan, I do not mean basically racial superiority or anything racial for that matter. I'm talking about a philosophy. Iranians were either religiously Zoroastrian or they were philosophically Zoroastrian. So Zoroastrianism is all about Arsha, it's about truth, and it's about aligning yourself with goodness, and you have personal responsibility to be good. There is no savior who comes and saves you. There is no sin nature. There is no hell. There is a place where you go to be purified, but that place is not hell. Basically, everything comes down to progressing life and being good to everyone inclusively. Because it's not a racial philosophy, it's all about an ethical philosophy. Actually, it was the first monotheistic, ethical monotheism. It makes everyone responsible for their deeds. And when you say we are Iranians because of our culture, because of our ancient culture. For instance, we are Iranian for our Yalda. And Yalda is also all about this festival of light overcoming darkness. It's also a philosophy. So all of our festivals, all of our ideas, the fact that we are overcoming Islam and reviving our culture is all about basically either Mithraism or Zoroastrianism, which are very similar. So I would think that if we want to actually revive our culture, restore our culture, decolonize from Islam, our constitution should be built on our values. And those are the same values on the basis of which humanism came about, right? We came up with the first human rights bill, right? And that was predicated on Zoroastrianism. So you do not have to believe in God to be a ethical Zoroastrian or a philosophical Zoroastrian. So to think good, to speak good, to do good to others inclusively. So I do think that secularism, it's when you study what secularism actually means, it only existed after Christianity. It is something that is only possible on biblicalism because it allows it somehow.
Make your point. No, continue.
The
I'm
point
just
is
saying
when you say we're going to be secular, then that is secular from Islam. We don't want to do anything with Islam. We don't want to become secular from Islam. We want our own culture. Becoming secular from Islam means, because our last constitution was based on Shia, on Islamic law. We don't want anything to do with Islam. We want a constitution based on our values and not secularism.
I get it. So I get your point. So
Okay.
before I respond to you, short answer, very short answer, because I need to say something. Let me speak, okay? So Ariana, do you accept Prince Reza Pahlavi as our leader?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Prince Reza Pahlavi is advocating for total secularism.
I know.
All religion out of politics, not just Islam, just religion as a whole.
I know.
So yeah, okay. So that's one point. Two, I think when it comes to Zoroastrianism, we have to separate the cultural aspects from
Yes.
the religious aspects.
Yes.
I completely agree with valuing the values and the culture and our ancient history from it, and everything that basically we inherited from a philosophy perspective of it, but not the religious aspect of it, right?
Yes.
That is your point. Well, that
Yes.
will naturally happen without us having to. That we could be completely secular, okay, while still benefiting from the values of our ancient culture, because you don't need to say we need to be secular only against Islam. We could be completely secular, but the values that comes from our ancient culture is so deep rooted in our people and in our history and in our minds that it will affect our decision making process when it comes to our laws naturally, without us having to say Zoroastrianism as a religion needs to have a say in politics. It will naturally, from the bottom up, have its influence. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly, but only when you say, I'm not invoking religion, I'm saying our Zoroastrian philosophy, because I know religion is something you have to choose for. That is not something you can put into your constitution. But what I'm saying is, instead of saying secular, and I don't agree with Prince Reza Pahlavi or King Reza Pahlavi, I love him in both ways. I don't agree with him because prior to this, he called himself Muslim as well. And now he's not saying that anymore. So that part of him, that's not my thing, right? That is his thing. But when you say a civilizational Iran instead of a secular Iran, I have more with that. But that isn't maybe a discussion not for now.
I agree more with Prince Reza Pahlavi, because secularism, once you open the door, then the door will become wide open. And we want to basically allow no religion in politics, even if you like some of them, because, it's really hard to basically be selective. Once you open that door, then that door is wide open, and we don't want to allow any religion.
Let's have this conversation later. Yeah, definitely. And when do you have time? Like, can I come back later or what?
Yeah, I mean, we have these discussions every time.
This is my first time here, so I don't know how it goes. So first you get everyone to speak, and then later you go into a dialogue, or how is it organized?
I'm going to make you a premium member, and our premium discussions are smaller, so people have less time to speak. So tomorrow we have our discussions same time every day, right? And our premium calls are smaller. Okay. So, but let me go through my points regarding these guys. One thing that I agree with Prince Reza Pahlavi on is that even though I am very, very, very anti-Islamic, I'm not anti-Muslim. Okay, and and Muhammad Reza Shah was a Muslim, and he built Iran unlike no one else, right? And
Yes, but his mistakes were Islamic.
Ariana, like, it's my turn to speak, so let me make my points. I'm gonna go, like, Muhammad Reza Shah didn't make that many mistakes, but let me just make these points, okay? So Iran needs to work for all of its citizens, including the Muslims. So even though I am very aggressively anti-Islam, I want in Iran to be a good place for all Iranian citizens, including the Muslim citizens, right? Also, I agree with Ariana regarding the word Aryan. I need everybody to understand that Aryan is not a dirty word. The Nazis made it a dirty word the same way that they made swastika into a hate symbol, even though it wasn't not. The swastika is a symbol for peace. So they changed it. The word Aryan also, it just means like a noble person. It's a set of ideas, set of values. It's a language group. It has nothing to do with blood or an ethnic group or anything like that. So we have nothing to do with that. That's your mess. Don't connect that to us. In fact, Iran itself means the land of Aryans. And by the way, Armin, my name, means
Protector
the guardian of the
Aryans. Yes.
Yeah, Armin means the guardian of the Aryan land, by the way. So there's that. And inside Iran, by the way, when it comes to Zoroastrianism, most Iranians are not Zoroastrian. However, they respect Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism has turned into a symbol of, we have a very small minority of Zoroastrians, but non-Zoroastrian Iranians respect Zoroastrianism, and they also consider the symbols of Zoroastrianism to represent Iran, patriotism, nationalism, and our deep history, even if they're not Zoroastrians themselves. And we could celebrate Zoroastrianism without actually believing in the religion. We celebrate its customs, we celebrate the culture, we celebrate its history, we celebrate the symbol without necessarily believing in in the metaphysical aspect of it. All right, so we need to move on. It seemed like I missed Rebecca. Did I miss Rebecca? Yes, Rebecca, but I think she raised her hand and I didn't include her in this. Rebecca.
I can start moderating now if you want, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't see Rebecca's.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Hello, is my volume all right?
Yes.
Good. I just wanted to bring up a point regarding the very first topic that came up regarding talk about America is late, they should have acted sooner, betrayal and all that kind of thing. Because those kind of narratives are very easily manufactured or hijacked by people working for, in this case, the Islamic Republic. So we have to be very careful when following or listening to those narratives that they're not being used as a psyop. So when we see that or engage with it, just take it with a grain of salt. You don't know who's saying it, who's relaying it, what their motives are. It might be hostile. That's all I wanted to say.
No, you're very on point, and we have been fighting against the narrative. Saying that is very much working on the Islamic Republic side, right? Even if you believe in it, it's not very strategic position to have right now. We have been on the Persian side. We have actually been repeating what you've been saying, Rebecca, a lot. So yeah, I completely agree with you. All right, so
next we have
guys.
Brandon.
Hi, Armin. I wanted to add to your point and try and kind of quell some concerns as well. You have to remember, with these so-called negotiations or that proposition from President Trump, if you look at what that proposition is, I think that's something the Iranian regime would never accept. I mean, if we woke up tomorrow and it turns out they accepted it, I would be completely shocked. You also have to remember, look what just happened just mere months ago when we bombed their nuclear facilities. We had them sitting down for a meeting while this occurred. It was a complete diversion tactic. And I think, honestly, that's exactly what we're looking at right now. You have to remember, once you pull a move like that on any regime, they're never going to trust any negotiation with you. At that point, you're already basically in a de facto state of war. There are going to be no negotiations, especially with that kind of a scope. So I think that really what we are looking at is President Trump using a lot of diversion tactics, keeping them on their toes, keeping them confused. And I think ultimately military action is inevitable. It just unfortunately takes a lot of time to amass that kind of military power in the region.
Yep. So I agree with you. However, what the Islamic Republic is thinking, in my opinion, is that if they accept some of the terms, they are going to be able to give ammunition to the isolationists on the left and right inside the United States to pressure the Trump administration by saying, look, they even agreed to this. So give enough political capital to people in DC to be able to get Trump back. So they were doing, yeah, Jeffrey is agreeing with me. So that is the strategy, is to basically say, like, I agree to this and this, and still I'm making a big noise about that to basically try to, and also maybe their understanding is Trump is unpredictable. So if all of a sudden Trump needs an excuse to back off, because sometimes Trump might say, like, I want 100 and then he accepts 80. So they're saying, let's give the 50 to Trump so that if one day he wakes up and decides, like, I'm not going to do this, he has something in his hand so he could who basically demonstrate as a win to say, like, oh, I already made them do this, so that's why I already have a good enough excuse not to attack. So they want to be able to give Trump an excuse to basically back off and also give ammunition to the isolationists in the Washington, D.C.
And I will add an isolationist point, which is a very good point that I haven't seen talked about. We saw a lot of that with Ukraine in conservative circles, and I'm very involved in conservative political circles. We saw a lot of opposition to involvement in Ukraine. But what's interesting is I think a lot of what I'm seeing is, as far as that point with Iran and not wanting to be involved in Iran or wanting to help free the people of Iran, I think a lot of it is astroturfed. It certainly seems that way to me. I think that there's a lot more support for the people of Iran in that situation and being involved in that than there was with Ukraine.
And to your point, it also is like the dumbest missed opportunity by United States and Israel. For the four headaches that United States has to deal with is like China, Russia, North Korea, and the Islamic Republic. Like, we are getting closest. This is the best opportunity for United States to be able to get rid of the Islamic Republic without any troops on the ground. And this missing this window of opportunity just doesn't make any sense, especially given that if we do miss this opportunity, the Islamic Republic can go both nuclear and also have 2,000 ballistic missiles or whatever. The terrorist capability might get to a point where they have to treat it like North Korea, basically just like accept that they are going to be here for a very long time. So given that this window of opportunity has been open for United States, it makes absolutely no sense for them not to take advantage of it. So that's why
agree.
By the way, Brandon, great to have you here. I like your points.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my first time here. And also, real quick, I'm working on a lyric video for that Faridun Farrokhzad cover. The problem is I can't speak, read, write, or understand Persian. So if anybody out there does and wants to help me with that, like knows how to make an SRT or subtitle file, please reach out to me because that would be really helpful.
Okay. I made you, Ahmad is saying, make him a premium member. I already made you a premium member, Brandon, so I hope you get to participate in our future discussions as well.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. All right.
Next, we have Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'll elaborate on some of the points that were brought up. So Armin's very correct that President Trump, I can say with a very high degree of human certainty, there's a very high degree of probability that some of the underlying thinking that underlines why President Trump is doing what he's doing is he's leveraging his version of Nixon's crazy president strategy to offset the disadvantage that the United States and or representative republics in general have surrounding strategic deception and denial by the very open nature of our society. It also takes us time to sit there and place our assets in place, and that's always a moving target because it's a complex adaptive system and adversaries engage in competitive adaptation. Part of that competitive adaptation centers around the Mullah regime bumping up its disinformation efforts, or its strategic information influence efforts to enable non-interventionists to undermine national will regarding U.S. strikes against the Mullah regime. They're conceding certain things while also trying to put themselves in a position where they can continue to pursue all those revolution-disruptive technologies or exogenous actors facilitating their breakout capability. I'm going to push back on Brandon a little bit. I'm also very much involved throughout like conservative circles, and I've been very much a part of the MAGA for Ukraine crowd, and the very same non-interventionists that undermine the United States support for our Ukrainian allies are the same ones undermining efforts to support brave Iranian protesters. As far as like the Shah, like I very much appreciate what you brought up to, and this has a lot of operational significance to it, particularly when you're trying to demobilize or delink elements of the Ulma or Dar al-Islam away from the Mullah regime and subsequently isolate them so that they can be eliminated. The Shah's policies, the White Revolution, the Shah was not hostile against Muslims just like Armin. His efforts was to delink Islam from being involved in government, right? I would contend he has got a historical underpinning. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Armin. So within Islam doctrinally, the application of reason, I'm probably mispronouncing this, Ittihad, is considered a primary heretical act other than a very brief time in the 9th century under the Mutazilites, which had a lot of Persian and Greek influences to it. That was about 80 years, and then the gates of Ittihad were slammed shut by the Asherites, and before the Mutazilites, the Umayyad. The Shah very much, at least in my observation, tried to reopen the gates of Ittihad. And that's within the broader Ulma. That's one of the points I try to make up. Why not make up? I try to reiterate to members of the Ulma that are not in supportive of the Mullah regime, to outline that the Mullah regime is not an accurate reflection of the Ulma in its entirety.
So the whole Ijtihad thing, by the way, is just more of a Sunni domain. In Shia Islam, they have opened those gates wide for a long time, and they work on a different system than the Sunnis regarding. I mean, we have a lot of mujtahids in Shia Islam, like everybody, and also to become a supreme leader, one of the requirements is to be a mujtahid, somebody who could do ijtihad. So we have in Shia Islam, we have a lot of, and also Khamenei is actually becoming a supreme leader. One of the controversies that he was not a mujtahid before he became a supreme leader. But among Shia Muslims, we basically are playing by completely different standards than in Sunni Islam. But Muhammad Reza Shah wasn't really trying to get involved in ijtihad and stuff like that. The only commentary he made about that was regarding, at some point, is that their Islam is not the real Islam. But the part that I actually admire Muhammad Reza Shah's way, because here's the thing: Muhammad Reza Shah had his hands tied when it came to Islam, right? So we had two threats against Iran at that point. One was communism, and the other one was Islamism. Fighting aggressively against communism was easier than the mullahs, because unlike now, Islam did have the Iranian people had respect for Islam at that time, and they had respect for the mullahs before the 1979 Islamic Revolution. It made sense for Muhammad Reza Shah to go aggressively against the commies and arrest them and treat them like the terrorists that they are. But for mullahs, that was very challenging. There are many people who criticize Muhammad Reza Shah for not going as aggressively against the Islamists as he did with the commies. But I don't accept that criticism, because I think if he had done that, the revolution would have happened earlier. A lot of people have to realize that the main spark of the revolution happened when there was a newspaper that suggested that Khomeini is an Indian, and that started the first spark of the revolution. Like, people were so sensitive regarding any negative commentary against, like, some of the greatest mullahs, that any position against them would have sparked like an uprising or something like that. So Muhammad Reza Shah had to be more careful regarding the positioning that he's taking against the Islamic authorities, in a way that he didn't have to with the communists. So I don't accept the criticism that people have had against him regarding why he wasn't tougher. He wasn't able to be, like, they had such a. Yeah, I know, I agree. I'm just responding to other people, right? What I admire about Muhammad Reza Shah was that he was trying to create a competitive alternative to Islamic values by reintroducing Iranians to their ancient culture and to their heritage. With the Jashnai 2500 Saleh, which was like the ceremony of the 2500 year celebrations that they had when it comes to bringing all the reintroducing Iranian people to the Achaemenid dynasty and the Sassanid dynasty and their poetry and all the museums that they were creating. And to him, this was a slow investment. Like, you cannot just switch Iranian mindset from being, respecting Islam to all of a sudden give up Islam for their Persian, ancient Iranian heritage and identity, right? But even though he wasn't able to finish that project, the seeds that he planted grew after the Islamic Republic came, after the Pahlavi dynasty fell and the Islamic Revolution was successful. He had a longer term plan, and I don't know if he understood how successful he was in the long term. Because the reason why you're seeing Iranian people out in the streets and celebrating their ancient culture and becoming anti-Islam and anti-Islamic identity in favor of their own ancient Iranian identity is because of all the investments that Mohammad Reza Shah had made. However, that was such a long-term investment that he wasn't around to see the results of it, but now we're seeing the results. So Jeffrey, you wanted to respond to that quickly? And
yeah, I was just the reason I offered that is because one of the lines of effort and or thematic elements that is underwriting the Red-Green Alliance is disinformation against His Highness Prince. Should I call him Prince or King? I don't know. I keep hearing two people calling him.
It's all, both of them are okay. So let me tell you, Jeffrey.
I don't want to.
Some people have been trying to divide us over like the prince saying people versus the king saying people. Like, they try to divide us in so many different ways, and this was one attempt to be like, oh, if you say prince, you don't really believe in King Reza Pahlavi, or if you say king, you don't believe in his own command because he said, I'm not king until the Iranian people decide. So they try to divide us over that, but we're not falling for that. The people who say prince support the people who say king. The people who say king,
so either one will work.
Say prince. Yeah.
All right. So I just didn't want to. I didn't know. I didn't know. That's why I was asking. So one of the lines of effort regarding the disinformation being pushed by the Red-Green Alliance is, well, the Shah was so allegedly so brutal against Islam, which isn't true, as we both kind of outlined. The Shah's approach very much was trying to move Iran into a position of tolerant modernity. He wasn't trying to exterminate Islam in Iran the way the leftists or Islamic fundamentalists are now trying to redefine his white revolution as a way to delegitimize or morally flatten the Shah versus the Mullah regime. And neither does His Highness Prince Reza Pahlavi. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is saying that it speaks volumes to the decency of Iranian people that they are still able to withhold that level of humanity even after suffering such brutality.
So I know the list, by the way, I saw Nestle also raise his hand. So guys, the list is long. So I'm just going to really quick response to Jeffrey here, because I think this is very important. And then we're going to go to the list. And guys, please be quick, because I want everybody else who raised their hand to be able to speak as well. I saw Ariana also raise her hand again. So really quick point, guys. The government should not have an anti-Islamic stance. That's what secularism means. But the citizens can, and I advocate for them to do so. Okay, the Iran that we are advocating for is an Iran where the government stays out of religion, no religion in politics, not in favor of any religion, but also not against any religion. That's what secularism is supposed to be. So from the position of Mohammad Reza Shah or Reza Pahlavi, King Reza Pahlavi, when he becomes king, they should not take any positions against Islam. However, as an anti-Islamic activist, I think in a secular country, the Muslims should have the freedom outside of politics to advocate for Islam. I want them to have that freedom. And I, as an anti-Islamic advocate, should also have the same ability to advocate against Islam, with the intention of destroying Islam completely, as long as we're just doing it without any violence or any harassments, as long as we're just doing it with speech, they could basically go all out and trying to make Islam everything Islamic with advocacy, with speech. And I should also be able to try my best to completely eradicate Islam as long as I'm only using my speech. And we're going to have a free, fair competition and just see who wins. Okay, this is what we're advocating for. This is when I say when I would say I want to destroy Islam, I'm not talking about any form of violence or oppression against Muslims. I'm only talking about advocacy, and they could also have the fair battleground. Basically, fair game. The government should just provide safety and security for both of us to have this competition. All right. So
next I have Daniel Dom.
Good evening. Do you hear me?
Yes. Daniel, can you? There's so many risen hands, so if you could guys keep it short so we can get to more. Yeah, thank you.
My question is, I'm sure once the Mullah regime is fallen, Iran should get, absolutely should get the nuclear program, like a nuclear, like Israel has or hasn't. And just what are your thoughts on it?
So if you check the IPP, the Iran Prosperity Project, Prince Reza Pahlavi and his team standing is that we're going to basically give up enrichment of uranium, or I think basically we're going to have international observers coming in and making sure there's no, enrichment of uranium or a nuclear program. That is for the transitional government. Okay, what we're going to do after that, I think it's going to be decided based on the government that the Iranian people have picked are going to come up with our policy. First, we're going to have a referendum where we're going to decide whether Iran is going to be a republic or a constitutional monarchy. Then we're going to have an election where we choose the people who are going to be writing the constitution. And then we're going to have an election where we pick the parliament. And I think based on the constitution and the laws written in our parliament, we're going to decide whether we're going to have enrichment of uranium at all. I suspect that we are going to probably get rid of it completely, because a lot of people are going to remember it being associated with the Islamic Republic, right? And their agenda. And they're also going to remember that all of this insistence of enrichment of uranium is what brought us all of these sanctions and the isolation, and all of this is a threat to the world. Again, we will probably understand that even though now we have a good government that is not going to be threatening the rest of the world, a lot of the rest of the world might be hesitant to have a good relationship with us, not knowing if this government is stable, if we have enrichment of uranium. They might think that if this government collapses and they become Islamic again, now they have all of this enrichment of uranium. So it basically makes sense for our international relationship perspective to just stay away from it. And Iran is actually such a good country for solar energy. We have a lot of deserts that are basically with the best for solar panels. Yeah, so I think when it comes to alternative energy to oil and gas, just like Mohammad Reza Shah basically envisioned, I think going and investing in solar energy, I think would make the best sense for Iran instead of maybe nuclear.
And also, real quick on the attack that supposed to be and then didn't. It just made the IRGC exposed where are their air defenses, where they are going to go when they gonna hide. So it was.
Yes, you're right. Because the Islamic Republic expected the attack to happen earlier, they moved so many things around, and that managed to get the Israelis and the Americans collect a lot of information regarding where everything is. Information and none of this could be changed that easily. So whenever the war happens, the Islamic Republic doesn't have enough time to change its strategies in enough time. So now they're very much exposed for the war that is coming about. That's going to happen. So yeah, they left them very exposed and vulnerable, because now Israelis and Americans have a lot more information.
And the last thing, just my I just see a lot of stuff that's going on the internet on the Iranian protests are out of Iran, and I just great people. They're magnificent.
Oh my God. Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate you saying it. I appreciate that. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
I'm pasting it periodically. Ashkan is next, and I'll paste it in 1 second.
Ashkan. Ashkan? I don't know if he's still here.
All right, maybe let's go to the next guy and we can come back. Eitan is next.
And guys, try to keep it short as possible. Thank you. So guys, in about 40 minutes, we're going to stop the recording. So people who don't want to be recorded and be on YouTube could speak. Okay.
Sabina is next.
I have been, trying to counter the people on social media that are against Pahlavi. And, one of the things that I end up getting into is, which I'm mostly able to do, is defend Mohammad Reza Pahlavi Shah. One of the things I'm having problems with, I've been using the narrative that you've given us, but one of the things I'm having problems with is so much of the sources that are out there are in favor of Mossadegh and against the Shah. And I'm wondering if you could maybe make a post where you give us sources to look to that provide the correct narrative.
Okay, so let me just quickly go over this with regard to Mossadegh and the coup d'etat, right?
Right.
The definition of coup d'etat requires for it to once be illegal. Do you agree? A coup d'etat needs to be illegal, right? And a coup d'etat is something that happens from the bottom up. Do you agree? Like if somebody, when it comes to the command structure, removes somebody under them, that's not a coup d'etat. If somebody in the command structure from under somebody removes somebody who's supposed to be above them, that's a coup d'etat. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so the only source of information that you need is the Constitution of Iran when Mohammad Reza Shah was in power. Okay, because if you refer to the Constitution, you could ask ChatGPT to look at the Constitution and find the places for you, right? The Mohammad Reza Shah, the Shah at the time, was completely within its legal right to remove the prime minister from power. In fact, any other minister as well, right? So how could the Shah doing a coup d'etat against Mossadegh by using his constitutional ability to remove the prime minister from power? How is that a coup? That is basically in line with his legal rights according to the constitution at the time. How is that a coup?
Right. Well,
and also, hold on. Let me make my point. Okay. So also, based on the constitution, the prime minister was serving under the Shah. The Shah was a superior position according to the constitution at that time in Iran. The Shah was above the prime minister, and he commanded over him. Chose basically put the Shah is the person that would confirm the prime minister and also could remove him anytime. Mossadegh was doing a coup d'etat against the Shah, not Shah against Mossadegh. Mossadegh, what he was doing against the Shah was not allowed according to the constitution, and he was also not. And also two other points. People say Mossadegh was democratically elected, people's choice. That is bullshit. The prime minister was not directly chosen by the people, right? And it was the Shah originally that put him in that position anyways. One. Two, and he decided to remove him, and then he resisted because he wanted to get all the power. Two, they say that there was a referendum that Mossadegh had that that allowed him to annul the parliament, because Mossadegh didn't have the legal ability to annul the parliament anyways, according to the constitution. So that was not within his legal right. But they say he held a referendum. Well, first of all, it was not within his legal right to hold a referendum. One, two, they took the referendum in a way that made it impossible for anybody to vote against what Mossadegh wanted, because they put the yes votes in a different place than the no votes of the city could be identified. And remember, Mossadegh was very intimidating. Like he was supporting terrorist activities. He would shut down media that was against them. He would suppress people who would speak against them. So in that environment, voting against what Mossadegh wanted, it doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you just put the yes and no in the same ballot box? Why would you separate the ballot box only for people to be able to be identified if they're voting different? He put it in different parts of the city. So that's why that referendum doesn't even make any sense. And also, the people who brought the Shah back were not the Americans, because we have on record that the Americans were surprised that in the final moment, many people, Iranians, came into the streets in defense of the Shah to bring the Shah back. If you actually look at the records, the Americans didn't have much of a presence inside Iran at that point, so they wouldn't be able to carry on such an operation. And they were completely ready to accept Mossadegh. Their estimation, their analysis was that Mossadegh is winning and Shah has lost. But when the people came into the streets in defense of the Shah, you could actually see communications from CIA agents in Iran to Washington, D.C. saying like, oh my God, everything is changing. And they were completely shocked. So the idea that the Americans brought back the Shah is bullshit. It was the royalists and the supporters of Shah that turned the tide against Mossadegh and in favor of the Shah.
Right.
And all of this is documented.